Now, gender-based violence in all its forms is one of the most prevalent human rights violations in the world. It undermines the health, dignity, security, and autonomy of its victims. The consequences of gender-based violence are devastating and can have lifelong repercussions for survivors. How can this be tackled? That's the question. Joining me now is family law expert Bosun Osifowora. And also joining us via Zoom is Executive Director, Hazy Health Initiative, Rhoda Robinson. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rhoda.
Good morning.
Right. Now, let's begin with you, Rhoda. We saw that at some point, pressure groups across the country, pressure from them, we saw that they put some pressure on the government, and through the Governors Forum, there was an emergency, a state of emergency declared on gender-based violence. And then, state governors were encouraged to have a sex offenders register just as a way to curb gender-based violence in the country. But how far have we come after that?
Thank you. I think we've made some progress. I can't say we've come far, but we've made some progress, which is better than decades ago, where gender-based violence was a norm in society and there were no laws, no policies, or no actions to speak against it. So to have the political will and instruments available to protect women and vulnerable populations from gender-based violence is a very good thing, and it's something that should be applauded. However, we still have a long way to go in terms of society's response to cases of gender-based violence and incidences of gender-based violence, as well as having the infrastructure to adequately respond to gender-based violence in form of supporting survivors and increasing preventive interventions in the society. The call for the register for sex offenders is a very good step, but we need to take it forward in being able to ensure that when cases of GBV, any form of gender-based violence, be it domestic or sexual violence, be it traditional harmful practices, when any form of gender-based violence is reported, it is addressed swiftly and the survivors get the support that they need to overcome the situation and prevent other forms of violence from happening again.
Right. Let's bring the conversation to the studio. Stemming from what she has said, she said that societies respond and structures in place to respond to cases of gender-based violence are still the bottles and the hurdles we need to cross at addressing or moving further with regards to efforts being made. And I wonder if that is the way you see things.
She's absolutely correct.
Right.
When a chauvinistic society, it's still a male-dominant society, and complaints from particularly women and vulnerable persons are treated with kids' gloves. Though the government is trying, like you said, you talked about them declaring a state of emergency and all that. But beyond that, I think we have to get to a level where if such offenses goes to a level where it affects your employment and it affects your source of income, then I think that will show that we're taking it seriously. If you abuse a woman and you are flagged and everybody who wants to employ you sees that this is who you are, this is the kind of person you are, or you have such points attached to your name or your data, then people will take it more seriously. And you see, another thing you find out also, talking about the society, a lot of this violence occur almost on a daily.
Yes.
In fact, by the minute. But one, people don't know where to go. Those who have gone somewhere to say things, I saw it, somebody put it up, one of the comedians, I think we've alluded to this one of the times I came here. It was talking about reporting rape case to the police. Now, it was supposed to be a joke. Number one, I felt that was too sensitive to be made a joke out of. But he said some things which was quite typical of how the Nigerian police will handle it. Somebody goes to the station, says I was raped, says I was assaulted, you know, a female, and then they're asking you silly questions like, what are you doing in his house? What happened to no? And you respecting my no. So those things, and you know, everybody was laughing along with it because one, they know that's how the police would handle it.
Yeah.
And also, they don't see a big deal in it. Now, so, but you see, when such people are brought to book, she talked about the sexual offenders list, you know, like that. That should be made so public, everybody should know. So when things like that happen, if it affects anything that affects a man's income or source of livelihood, he would readjust. He would sit up. That's normal. It's a fundamental. So I think we have to up it to that level. Now, but another thing we also have to say is it's not, now we're seeing a shift. Women too are now abusing men, killing, you know, all kinds of things. So it cut both ways. It's not just stereotyping the men like this is their exclusive preserve, it's only men that assault women. No. Anybody who is caught in that web should be, you know, made to face the law. Now they've reviewed the laws guiding, you know, way back, you see offenses like rape going for 1-2 years. Now there are laws that says that life imprisonment for it. That's good. But beyond the life imprisonment, there should be stiffer measures that the government can put in place.
Like what?
The one for income. That's my own. That's my own campaign for it. Because I know if anything is going to affect my source of income, I'll think twice. I'll think that any human being would think twice.
There are those who would just say, "Outserve the time," but I'll do the time. But then afterwards, they go back to these things. But you mentioned something that I'd like for you to perhaps expatiate on, talking about we seeing more of women now abusing men. And what do you think is at the heart of that? Do you think perhaps because they are not finding an outlet to perhaps talk about these things, or perhaps because they do not know where to go, like you mentioned, they are deciding to take laws into their hands?
From my little research, because of the type of work I do, I found that the awareness is low. A lot of people don't know where to go. Now then, some have gone even to the police, which is the nearest to them, and they didn't get justice. Let me just put it that way. In fact, some were mocked at that level. I just talked about the joke now. So, and you know, people share information. So if such a person sees another person, just don't bother to go there. Nothing is going to come out of it. So I think that has gone viral too. And people are beginning to look at it, okay, let me find justice with my hands. After all, I was the one that was being assaulted. I was the one that the violence was meted out on. Now, so that's what gave vent to people, you know, resorting to self-help. That I have found out, because they feel that even something as simple as, sorry for the digression, insurance. A lot of times, you know, you just look at it that if I go there, the protocols, everything, let me just go and sort this thing myself. I don't want issues. I don't want the stress and all that. That is what is, because so one, then also the society, if somebody works up to a police station and say I was raped, the stereotyping also is one thing that people don't take kindly to. If you look up north, a lot of things happen up north, northern Nigeria. You find that young girls that are being married to older men, some just end up killing them. They just feel that, where will she can't run back to the home, she can't run back to her people. They've already practically sold her out, and then nobody's coming to our rescue. So at that point, there's a part of the human being that will just, you know, come up with, let me find a solution within myself. It's unfortunate, the outcome from that, it's always like meeting violence with violence, but that's the only way to vent. And that's, so the society needs to change, the laws need to be adjusted, a lot of things need to come forward. Then the awareness, because I can tell you 8 out of 10 women don't know where to go whenever they are assaulted. A lot don't want to go to the police. Then some want a safer place to go, somewhere I can go, I can share with somebody who will empathize, who will see from my own angle. We don't have such system. So that's why you find the prevalence of, you know, people resorting to violence, people, I mean, you know, victims, you know, coming up with self-help.
Right. Rhoda, I guess you might want to perhaps also touch on the fact, this aspect of people resorting to self-help, the dimension that it is taking and the implications.
Foremost, before I respond to that, I just want to say that there is no excuse for any form of violence, either in retaliation or as an outlet for pent-up emotion. Various studies have always shown that one of the main causes, or one of the causative factors to the continued prevalence of domestic violence or any form of gender violence, is that sometimes the perpetrators themselves have been victims, and through that they are practicing what they know, and that's the only way. So we need to look at instances where we can stop that from happening before it gets to that point. And when you're now looking at educating people, creating awareness on, as a colleague had already said, where people can get support, it is extremely important that people know about these things. For instance, a lot of states where my organization currently works in have signed on to the VAP Act, that the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. A lot of people don't know the provisions of this act. They don't know that as part of this act, you can actually request for a protection order in such that the person who is perpetrating that violence gets removed from you. The people don't know, the survivors don't know, a lot of police do not know these things, and being able to act upon this provision is very, very difficult, which is why you see that most people, even though they don't want to go to the police station, they still need to escape that violence. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity of escape. In last year, when the COVID hit, we had a tremendous rise in cases of intimate partner violence and domestic violence because there was no cause for escape. There was nowhere anybody could go to. People were stuck at home. People were stuck with their perpetrators, and they did not have any source of support. So we need to start finding and creating systems that allows for survivors to get the support that they need and the information that they need when they need it. Another instance is, as I said, in the issue of rape, where you go to a police station and the response you get even makes it more difficult for you to ask for help or go out anymore. There are organizations in different states that provide this kind of support that can link you up to healthcare, legal aid, a safe space, so that you can remove yourself from that situation. So it all depends on how much information that we are putting out there and how effective the system is. And I also want to say that as a society, we have a very important role to play. Right now, a lot of people see domestic violence as a family issue. Forget about the police at this point. Even as human beings, when you hear your neighbors fighting, you say to yourself, they will sort their problem out, until you start hearing screams and everything like that, and it starts sounding dire before people actually move to take a look at what is happening. We need to have more active bystander interventions. People need to understand the problem. People need to know that it is a problem, and then they need to be motivated to act upon it, and they need to have the skills to be able to respond safely, because it does not do good for you to want to help somebody and then put yourself in danger as well. So you need to know the different steps that you can take to make sure that you are safe and the person you're trying to help is also safe. Domestic violence is a crime, and we need to start looking at it in that aspect as well. If you see somebody robbing or trying to steal a car, you would make an alarm, you would call someone, you would make sure that that thing stops. I've seen a lot of times when somebody is trying to steal something and a lot of people start making noise and they catch that thief. So we need to take forms of gender-based violence and domestic violence and traditional harmful practices as such, as criminal offenses that we need to step up and report and play an active role in ensuring that it is eliminated in our society.
Indeed, playing an active role. But we see situations where people, you try to help some persons, and then they ask you, what is your business?
I knew you were coming to that.
No, but because it is what we have seen happen.
Every day.
Yeah, you see people, intervene, even on social media, and then the next thing you begin to see reports from the same person you're trying to defend coming to say that, yes, we are fine now, so leave us alone. I mean, how do we strike a balance? How do we really nip things like this in the bud? Some persons also do not know that they are being abused. They think that it is a normal thing because they have grown up to see it as such. And it is also something some parents teach their children. It's part of life. Accept it that way.
I think culturally too, it doesn't help. Now, one of the things in this part of the world is living your marriage is seen as, in some cases, something as big as a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
I do a lot of divorce cases, and I've seen people that come these days and I ask them, are you sure you want to go? Because I've had people pull out. They'll say the family came together, my church too doesn't help, particularly in most of, they feel that don't leave the marriage, just stay, whatever happens. Then culturally, like in the western part of Nigeria, they just feel that, okay, whatever problems you encounter in marriage, whatever violence is meted out on you, for the sake of your children, just stay there. And I've seen people die. I've seen people psychologically drained because of this thing. So culturally too, we don't have, so we need a lot of awareness. But there's one thing I need to point out. I was speaking with a colleague. She's in Germany, and she talked about what Rhoda talked about earlier, the third party intervention. And she said in Germany, during last year, during the COVID thing, they found that there was a lot of violence. The surge was very high. So the government came up with a position that you go, you fill a form, pick a hotel of your choice, and you stay there at the expense of the government. So they found that people could cool down. Some stayed 1 month, some stayed 2 months. Now that's expensive, but they found that it really worked. Some people just needed the space. There's this thing about when your husband or your wife is going out, you're monitoring, you want them to stay. So when COVID came and people stayed, they stayed in their faces.
They were not used to it.
They were not used to it. So then all kinds of issues started coming up, violence started following and all that. Now, so such interventions too are needed in this part. But you see, our handlers, like government here, they don't understand some things and the workings, the dynamics of this thing. That's what, because I never had it before until my colleague told me that this is what they do here, and it really solved a lot of problems. Then they'll follow up on you and also find out that, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to opt out of the marriage? A lot of people went back and they're better now. But a lot of people just felt, I've had enough, let me just go. Now, but if we have that kind of system here, I think it will actually mitigate the level of violence and abuse that you find in marriage. But two things we need to speak to. The cultural angle,
yes,
that you're staying because of your kids. You don't have to die. The kids will grow up. Now, then there's something also she said, this thing must be shown to people that it is a crime. It is a criminal offense, and it must be taken to the highest level. If people see more convictions, then you see another thing is, even when you want to go and report, I've had cases where they go like, let's not go to the station. They will criminalize the father of my children. You see, so there's a whole lot that has to do with, so we need a cultural orientation to know that this thing is not supposed to be. Then the man too, if you really want to fight, look for a boxing gym and not your wife. Your wife is supposed to be your helpmate. Your partner is supposed to be somebody that you relate with and look for a better future with, not a punching bag, not some. Now, the physical abuse is one. There's some who won't touch you.
Mental
abuse. But mentally, that is worse. And I've seen people turn into what they are not, what God didn't make them. They metamorphosed into something horrible as a result of mental abuse. So we have to bring in the mental angle too. That one is there. So people should seek help from organizations that are out for this kind of thing. Then there's always but my own position is getting into a wrong marriage is not your fault. Anything could have brought you in it, or wrong relationship. But staying there,
it's your decision.
In the face of this abuse is your fault. God's going to blame you. Life will blame you. Even the children you think you're staying because of, they will blame you in the long run. At the end of the day, you will be the one that will face your problem 100%. So we need to start. Programs like this will help. Churches too need to come to that realization that divorce is not a cause. It is not a spiritual problem. Let people come back. I've done a divorce case a few years ago, and today the couple went back to marry. So that's it. But for now, for that period of heat, let them go the separate ways. Let's create interventions. Let's create things that can help, and also let's bring more awareness to the people.
Awareness, and now that's where I'd like Rhoda to come in. Awareness. I mean, we see lots of organizations like yours coming up with programs, even on a yearly basis. And the aspect of awareness, I'm wondering why it's still a challenge, why it is not achieving the desired result that we want to see.
Okay, I think first, as you said, a lot of organizations are working on domestic violence and issues of gender-based violence because it's such a culturally entrenched problem, as in it is accepted. So we are trying to change the way people think, and it's not as easy as demolishing a house. No, it's complex because they are looking at the foundation of people's identity as well. So if you're saying that men cannot beat their wives, or you cannot hold your wife imprisoned in your house because you think she did something wrong, they will tell you that it is their right, they paid their bride price. So you are trying to change a more fundamental part of our society. So it's not something that happens in a day, but it is something that can be changed. Our organization is currently working on ending female genital mutilation, which is a deeply cultural issue. And it's not something that you can just tell people that FGM is wrong and they will believe you. You need to engage the right kind of partners. You need to engage family heads, you need to engage community leaders, you need to engage religious leaders. As you said, religion plays a very key role because people follow the words of leaders. So when you can get these key community influencers to start speaking the same thing as you are, to start telling them that your religion does not support violence against women and girls. Our culture does not support violence against women and girls. Then it's changing it, because you are now changing it from what they believe and not just saying that beating women is wrong. You have to look at the problem fundamentally to address it, and that's what a lot of organizations are currently doing, trying to change it one person at a time, family at a time,
we
one
have
community at
a conversation.
That people have the right
now. Thank you so much. So much has to be done with regards to reorientation. Rhoda Robinson, Hasty Health Initiative Executive Director, thank you so much. Family law expert,
thank you for having me.
Barrister Bosun Osifowora, thank you as well for your time.